Daniel. It is my pleasure to welcome you to A Life More Extraordinary. I'm going to be your official cinema guy. I'm going to give you a quick rundown of the rules. Please remember that this is being recorded to share afterwards. Please do keep your mic on mute if you don't want us to hear you nipping to the loo or grabbing a parcel or opening a can of beer. And please do relax. I cannot stress that enough. This is not a stressful situation. I'm sure half of you are I was going to say naked from the waist down, but I hope not. You know, I'm presuming some of you will be in your pajamas and slippers. It is that kind of thing. We're going to have a good time this morning. And your fantastic hosts for today, Ollie Matthews and Sarah Burbidge, for A Life More Extraordinary.
Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. As Paul said, my name's Ollie Matthews, and together with Sarah Burbidge and Kat Wildman, I am very proud to welcome you to the first session of A Life More Extraordinary. It's been an idea in the making. We've got together a great panel, as Paul says, all with their own interesting stories and inspiring kind of views on creating a life more extraordinary. But before we go into detail with them, Sarah, Kat and I just wanted to provide a little bit of background to what on earth this is actually all about. So the three of us really believe in the importance of understanding your own purpose and following it whenever it comes to our own lives. Now, there was already plenty of pressure on people before this year came along. And then in 2020, people's lives got turned upside down and challenged in ways that none of us have ever experienced. And these pressures have forced so many of us to have to rethink where we're spending our time and investing our energies. And we're trying to rethink all of this in an incredibly brutal setting. Many have had to face some really quite terrible questions. How will I pay rent? Will I get to say goodbye? What am I meant to be doing now? Who will want me? And how do I cope? Even the language of these past few months has been restrictive and felt kind of negative. Lockdowns, remote, pandemic, infection, quarantine. But the phrase that kind of shook us into action was the new normal. Because if we're going to go through all of this and the very best that we can come out the other side with is normal, then what on earth are we doing? We believe that our focus should be on something better than normal. We believe that our focus should be on something extraordinary. And this session today is one of those steps to create a space for people who want the same, to come together and have a challenging and rewarding conversation.
The thing that we found when we were building this conversation was that we ended up having to break it first because we found ourselves talking in like business speak that we had been fed ourselves and just going along with it without even questioning it or challenging it in any way. And how uninspiring is the new normal? I mean, whatever variation on that theme people present to you, it's not inspiring because who even wanted the old normal? And all we could talk about before the pandemic kicked off was how it didn't work for everyone, especially those that needed flex in work and life and work that actually worked for them. So anyway, we all agreed, like Ollie said, there's so many lessons to be learned here. We don't need an asteroid to come and hit us and destroy the world and another pandemic. But some weird compromised version of reality just didn't feel good enough for us. And we wanted to emerge with something better, like metamorphosizing out of a cocoon into something wonderful. And what I don't mean is moving to the Maldives with a private chef. I mean, things like, having work that works for the majority of people or even everyone, and having a life more extraordinary, whatever that may look like. So what we were keen to do is to hear other stories, real stories, ideas from other people, your ideas, everything from like, hang on, I am living La Vida lockdown and absolutely loving it. Like, I'm an introvert, I am a secret hermit and I'm absolutely loving life, to people who, maybe are not doing okay and they're saying they're fine, but actually maybe things are not working as well as you might think.
Yeah, I think, I've certainly felt like staying in that cocoon, Cat, actually quite a few days through this lockdown. It's not all been beautiful butterflies. But the part that kind of, when we were talking about this as an idea, was that we were all kind of united in passionate about kind of making this useful as well. So kind of an opportunity to hear some amazing stories and things that have been happening in lockdown, but also to have really real conversations and make a difference and change the right things. Not just talking about it, but doing it too. So that's kind of what we want to do today, is talk about kind of, we've got some great guests for you. So kind of in honor of brokering this kind of fun, honest, real chat, we've kind of gone through our networks and are hoping to bring you some really awesome, excellent people who you will see with the backgrounds behind you. They're the Alive More Extraordinary. And they've got some really lovely kind of different stories to share. But you guys, it's the reason we've done it as a Zoom call, not a webinar where you can't be seen. You've got all your lovely faces here because you're also really a part of this conversation. We would love for you to contribute in the chat room, and we'd love for you kind of to throw your questions to the panel. We will be making opportunities for you to do that. So do please share those. We've also got something really exciting happening today. If you can see Rebecca Osborne in the mix. She is a live visual artist, and she is going to be drawing what she hears throughout today's session. So, I mean, awesome. Pin her video if you want to take a look at her work. That's Rebecca Osborne. She's in the mix there. Rebecca, tell us what you're going to be doing a bit today.
Hi there. So I'm listening live, drawing live, and trying to capture an overall feeling of the event in one space for you to also reflect back on. I've stolen some of your words that you'll see down the bottom of the screen at the moment. So the 3 words, I've stolen them, and I've just done some silly drawings of some of the introduction as well, which will be on there for you to have a look at as well.
Awesome, thank you so much. That is really great. With the 3 words as well, we're going to chuck them in a word cloud. Everyone loves a word cloud, so we'll probably share that with you later at some point, or on social or something afterwards. But without further ado, let's meet some of our panel. I did just promise you actually that our panel had the same backgrounds, so that you could identify them clearly. I can also now exclusively reveal that Paul McCaffrey is on our panel, but doesn't have the background because he couldn't find time in lockdown to do the right computer updates. So, Paul, take it away. Sorry, to just like completely throw you there, but welcome. Thank you for being part of our story here. Tell us about you, Paul, and your story.
Yeah, so I'm a stand-up comic, so obviously this has hit me hard. My whole sort of job is about kind of human connection, and my work depends on a live audience. It is a sort of job that the longer this kind of went on, it seemed like less of a real sort of job. You know, it's a thing that you turn up in a room, some people arrive there, you say some funny things, they laugh, everyone has a nice time and goes home. But obviously, we were unable to do that. So there's been there was a kind of, I'd say a sort of 2 or 3 week period at the beginning, which was certainly a lot of my friends that I spoke to really struggled with. It was like, wow, this is the kind of rug was pulled quite unceremoniously from underneath us. And as time went on, people adapted. Online gigs became a thing. Initially, they were quite awkward until they found the way to make an audience audible. You were just sort of throwing stuff out into the ether and just hoping.
Like proper tumbleweed, horrid.
Well, just yeah, exactly. So you don't realise kind of how much of what you do as a comic relies on sort of the audience feedback for timing. You will say a punchline, then pause, then they will laugh, and that kind of, it becomes a bit of a sort of back and forth with the audience. But without that, it's quite hard to know what you're doing. But that, as time went on, people kind of, this obviously Zoom became a huge part of my life. These kind of webinars where you were able to sort of see and hear audience members, and that was great. And then when we were allowed to start performing outside, I'm very lucky. I live in Winchester, and a few friends of mine sort of own pubs and stuff. So we were able to put on outdoor events, which, I mean, the response to was quite overwhelming. We're very lucky in the sort of world of performance that what we do only requires people to come and sort of be seated. So in actual fact, when they were sort of trying to stop people moving around and people coming in bubbles, it lent itself very well to that. So what I was able to do was to start putting on comedy shows in and around the area in which I live. And it was great because, I mean, they were quite euphoric, the first ones, where people were coming just to have that sort of communal human experience where people were able to do something together, where, you know, there was a focus of performance. We were very lucky as well, because people had been sort of locked in their houses for so long. I was able to sort of call in favours from some quite, like Ramesh Ranganathan came down and did one unannounced, and Rob Beckett. And so it was, I was able to sort of get those guys who were just glad to be out of the house to come down and do them. But yeah, they were really joyful, and they kind of would sell out very, very quickly without even people knowing that those people were going to be there, because people were just so desperate to have that sort of collective human experience, I think.
Great.
I don't know if that really answered the question.
So lovely to hear. So lovely story already to hear of lockdown. So thank you, Paul, for being on our panel.
No worries.
Don't worry about the background, guys, but Paul McCaffrey, he is on our panel.
Thank you, Paul. And you may well have seen Paul in performance, and you may well have seen our next panelist as well, particularly if you have been anywhere near LinkedIn. Lauren Griffiths, it's fantastic to have you here, and special shout out because you are in the States, and so it is a ridiculous o'clock time for you. So thank you for joining us. Lauren, do you just want to say hello to everybody?
Yes, hi, thank you so much for having me on the panel today. My name is Lauren Griffiths, and this very small act I did of swapping out my stuffy stage corporate headshot with a very real selfie that I took at 8 a.m. before a video call was not, intentionally extraordinary. However, the dialogue and debate it sparked around what it even means to be professional these days, the light it shed around judgments that we make based on appearance, and the dialogue that ensued around, vulnerability in leadership is extraordinary. My LinkedIn post has been viewed 41 million times with 30,000 comments, and it created a platform for me to continue challenging some of these very outdated truths that we hold on to that are no longer relevant or important or serve us. And it gave me the opportunity to continue just kind of sharing the benefits of bringing your whole and true self to everything that you do.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, as someone who's tried to sort of master social media over many years, 41 million views on anything of mine is a mystery to me. So congratulations on that act of rebellion that it's, like you say, it sparks some really interesting discussion, and hopefully we'll have more of that this morning.
I've just shared actually the LinkedIn shot there, just so you can be familiar, because you've probably seen it on your LinkedIn cropping up. But that's Lauren. It's great to have her. And Lauren, I believe your mother-in-law is also joining us on the call, listening in the audience.
Yes.
So welcome.
And my sister-in-law. Thank you very much, my UK family, for supporting me.
And it's pretty early, isn't it, where you are at the moment? So thank you.
When you have 3 little ones, 6 a.m. is like brunch.
Yeah. Oh, it must be time for a drink. So
brilliant. Let's also, because we haven't actually deliberately all invited people that you will know and be familiar with and have seen on comedy or on LinkedIn, but Ben, who we're also going to meet now, Ben Ridgeway. And I mean, this is going to blow your socks off, but was in the opening of All About a Boy as a child star. So that will take you back a bit, but that's not what he's here to talk to us about today. But Ben, hi, welcome. Thank you.
Hi. It was a long time ago, About a Boy, but it's still my claim to fame, and I'm glad you mentioned it, because to be honest, and this is very honest, I still mention it at every opportunity. So, why wouldn't you? So, yeah, I'm sure it'll be on ITV2 around Christmas time.
Look, we will look out for you, Ben, and your younger self.
It's on Netflix now, mate. I hope the royalty checks are coming in, because it's on Netflix right now.
Yeah, I must get in touch. I get in touch with Sylvia Young, the agent, and say, "Where's my cash?"
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Amazing. But Ben, what's your life more extraordinary, or your lockdown love story, isn't it, Ben?
Yeah, it's very much a lockdown love story. It's very much a lockdown love story. And actually, I'm going to take you back to late 2018, firstly, when life was quote unquote very normal, and we didn't use the word pandemic or lockdown or anything like that. But I actually met my partner in late 2018, and life was pretty difficult for both of us at the time. Not to take this down a too sad a route, but my father had passed away, and I was boozing too much, and things were really, really tricky. And eventually, sometimes it gets to a point where you have to seek help for that. And I actually met my partner in a rehabilitation centre. And what is really interesting and relates to lockdown is that when you're in these sorts of places and you meet someone and you kind of hit it off, it's not really allowed, because you're meant to be concentrating on yourself, and actually fixating on someone else can be a trap that you fall into. So within that rehabilitation centre where we both were for 3 months, we were put under what's called a sort of a contact ban. We weren't allowed to speak to each other and so on, because you're meant to focus on yourself. So imagine that we'd met, sort of essentially fallen in love at first sight, but weren't allowed to speak to each other despite being in the same room. And anyway, we came out of there, and life's improved dramatically since then. And it's been a really positive kind of love story. And then before we knew it, suddenly we're in March 2020, and we're pulled apart again, because she's up north with her little one, who's around, she's 3 in Jan, and I'm down south. And eventually we'll come together, but for the moment we're living apart. So from March, when Boris announced the really restrictive lockdown that we all underwent, we were also pulled apart again. So it's this relationship that's got a huge amount of love in it, but everyone keeps trying to pull us apart and not allow us to talk to each other or speak to each other.
Oh, Ben, so what did you do? What did you do?
Yeah, well, it was like it happened again. You know, we had it in the rehab for 6 weeks, and then we had it from March. Now, I was always thinking about proposing this year, and I was going to do it around this time, really. I thought Christmas time might be kind of a nice
Here
time.
she is on our webinar right now. No,
Sorry?
it's not that moment.
No, she's not. I should have got her along. I should have got the little one along as well. So I was on the sofa, and I was looking at rings, and I was thinking, well, maybe I should just do it. I haven't seen her for 6 weeks, and that's probably going to be more like 10. Meanwhile, Tess is up north with the little one at no nursery, messaging me and saying, I'm just so tired. It hurts. It's painful. So without her knowing, far more of a surprise than it would have been if I'd have proposed at Christmas or on holiday or something like that. I burst in the door in her flat in Liverpool after a 3-hour train journey, and got down on one knee. And it was amazing, and it was far more romantic after not seeing each other than I could have ever thought a proposal would be. Tess is a glamorous woman, and she, would imagine a proposal after a meal or on the beach somewhere where she's got all her hair done and her makeup on. But Tess was in some sort of old pajamas. She just ordered a takeaway, and I've never seen someone not able to speak, but also be happy at the same time. So yeah, it was remarkable. And obviously, the great thing about lockdown, ultimately, not lockdown, but this whole period of working from home, is that I've been able to spend more time there with her and her gorgeous little one as well. So it's been amazing, really. But that trend of being pulled apart and coming together sort of goes back to when we first met, and hopefully it won't happen again.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you.
Absolutely.
You are really, all the love is kicking off in our chat. People are saying that should be the movie. That should be the next movie that we make, your story. So thank you.
About a boy too. About a man. About an engagement.
Yeah.
I said that first. I've got the rights. Thank you, Ben. And we've got 2 more panelists.
I think everyone's a little bit in love with Ben right now, aren't they? So thank you, Ben, for being on our panel. We also need to meet Eno as well. Eno, tell us about your lockdown.
Hi everyone, I'm Eno, as in Brian Eno. I do love Brian Eno, by the way. And also you can call me Brian. My best friends actually call me Brian. They don't call me Eno. So I'm a BBC journalist professionally, but personally, I like to think of myself as a designer, a visual artist, and a futurist. So pandemic definitely has had me thinking about my future, But I have to say, I'm looking forward to the future, because as a designer, you're always constantly looking for improvement and you look at challenges as opportunities. So for me, lockdown has been it's an opportunity. When Sarah invited me to this and asked me my thoughts on lockdown, I said to her, I felt like it was like being in a matrix. No judgment, just enjoy it. You'll come out the other side. So that's how I'm taking it.
Have you got the journey with you?
Say that again.
Have you got them with you, the other Matrix stars?
Well, actually, no, I shouldn't say that. I was going to say, well, Keanu Reeves was in a film last night, and then I thought, I'm about to go down the on PC route. So bring it back, Brian. So yeah, normally, as I say, professionally, I'm a journalist, but I'm on secondment, and my secondment started in, I have to get off my seat. This is Zoom for you. My computer has just informed me that I'm not plugged in and my battery is about to run out. So give me 2 seconds, but I will keep talking because I can multitask. I was like, what's that word? So I'm on a secondment, and my new job with the BBC, which started in February, is as an international producer for a network called GWIN. GWIN stands for Global Women in News, and it's a BBC network. We have over 2,000 members who are all women, who mostly work in news, and we support them. When I got a secondment in February, I was promised travel. I'd managed to travel to Nigeria, but wait for it. I was going to travel to Brazil. Yes, I even got in Tokyo for the Olympics. And then a month later, we got into lockdown. I haven't been anywhere at all, but I am a global citizen. On Zoom, I've been to Afghanistan, I've been to West Africa, East Africa, South Asia, East Asia. I've been to the Americas. It's been great because I've had the opportunity to change my mindset, held over 60 events on Zoom around the world. I know a lot now about countries I didn't know about before. And the work I do for the BBC, we've just been nominated for exceptional contribution to COVID lockdown in the News Awards. So we'll find out next week whether we win or we don't win. Thank you. So generally for me, it has been difficult, but also as an artist, it's a great opportunity. And to finish off, I'll say my mantra for the lockdown is, Eno, or rather Brian, stop complaining and start creating.
Oh, I love
Nice, nice. Thank you, Eno. And our final panelist, Kat Wildman.
I mean, how on earth do you follow those stories? I'm just going to make up lies now.
Yeah.
So I am Kat Wildman. I am a lifetime technologist and science geek. I'm a mum of 3 kids aged 6 and under. And people always say that like it's a badge of honor. And it's like a competition to see how young your kids can get. Like, I'm a mum of 3 kids, 3 and under, but they are 6 and under. It's been equally challenging for parenting over lockdown, regardless of how old your children are. But at the start of lockdown, staring down the barrel of having to become a teacher and homeschool my children, I decided to bite the bullet and now or never style, quit my job and start a business. It's called the Global Equality Collective. It's not like selling crafts. The Global Equality Collective's aim is to close gender and diversity gaps in all homes, schools and businesses in the UK. So pretty casual. And in addition to bringing about equality, my aim is never, ever to go back to commuting 9 to 5 ever again. And I will try my absolute best. You'll have to drag me onto the train, kicking and screaming and clawing at the doors. So yeah, that is my story, and just throwing my life up in the air and seeing what came down again. And I've never made sourdough, and I don't intend to.
Or I'm not sure you've really done lockdown if you haven't tried to make
Oh,
sourdough.
no, I'm on the outside.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, thank you very much, everybody there for sharing your stories, and some obviously inspiring stories. And like Kat was just saying, I kind of feel quite humbled when I look at what I was not able to achieve during the last few months. But one of the themes that kind of stood out for me there in a lot of the stories, particularly from what Kat said and from what Lauren was saying there, was that idea of bravery. And that actually it took quite a sort of took you to be brave to try and start making a change and start creating this life more extraordinary. So Kat, if we can stick with you maybe first of all, did did you feel brave? Do you feel brave, as you look back on what you've been able to achieve?
No, I felt terrified, and I still do feel terrified. I think it's really, really important to be totally honest about the fact that, yeah, it probably took either a mixture of bravery and a slight break with reality to do something like quit my job at the middle of lockdown when we're going to go into a very financially distressing situation. But I just was, what was driving me was fear, and it was fear of not having used this opportunity, not like said, not having used this as an opportunity to do something. Like, it's now or never was my thing in my head. I just thought, if I'm going to do this, just do it now and see what happens. And I would have looked back if someone else had done it, or if I had never done it, I would have been devastated. So it was more fear of not doing it than bravery, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And sorry, Lauren, just from you as well. Did you feel brave? Like the way you described it, it almost felt like a bit of an act of rebellion when you sort of made that move.
I didn't really set out to do anything. So I think, Kat sort of went out there and had this purpose. And I thought maybe my mother-in-law and sister-in-law who are on this call would like my post, and I would have 2 likes, and that would be fantastic. This is more of something that happened to me. And, I'm not even on social media because I enjoy my privacy. So the fact that not 1, but 2 of my photos seen around the world, people commenting on my eye color, all these sorts of things, love mail, hate mail. It was very startling. It's very surreal. It's kind of this like once in a lifetime thing to go viral. And I had these moments where I just wanted to turn it off and shut it down because it became a little bit too much. And that's when you talk about bravery, and I was looking for inspiration. And a lot of people said to me, Lauren, you have a platform, stand on it. This is your time. And I think for me, the bravery was continuing to have the conversation, challenging myself to come to, forums like this or speak to other people who I've spoken to about this, continue to use my voice. There are people that are excited to hear what I have to say, who knew it. And I think for me, this challenge is where all this growth has come from. So I encourage everyone to step outside their comfort zone. That's really where all the magic happens. So
it's about like both Kat's and Lauren's story are sort of about authenticity, aren't they? Starting your own business is sort of removing your mask and being authentic, and it's the same with Lauren, even more prominently. It's about sort of being authentic, and this whole period is, we're letting everyone into our homes, when I'm having meetings and so on. It's sort of like there's more of a sort of a vulnerability there that's prevalent, and being vulnerable is actually a strength, and it takes a lot of bravery. Like Paul will relate, being a comedian and standing on stage, there's an authenticity there that scares the hell out of you. And I think we've all had to touch into that authenticity and be brave within that, and that's a scary thing to do, and it's been exacerbated by the situation we're in. We've all had to be more real, haven't we, and more ourselves.
Yeah, I think it's also really caused kind of life-changing moments, or that need to kind of reinvent yourself as well. And I mean, Paul, you spoke about this in the opening. Can I ask you a bit more about that? What was it like to lose your audience and have to really think, what do I do now?
I should imagine quite tiring for anyone who encountered me in the first couple of weeks. Sort of Amazon delivery drivers, sort of I'm chasing them down the drive, trying out jokes on them.
Oh no, I know, poor Clive here. I mean, Clive, my postman, he's not meant to know me this well. I'm surprised he hasn't taken out a restraining order on me yet, because I just need to see people. But you must have that to the absolute extreme. Where's your audience gone? What were you doing about it?
Yeah, and just a sort of physical response, kind of usually Thursday, Friday and Saturday at around 8 o'clock, my adrenaline would be running. I'd be about to go on stage. And obviously that was kind of just, it was odd. It's a unique thing that I do. And obviously I missed it. And I think any performer will tell you the same. I usually gig 5 or 6 times a week, and to not get that kind of approval or kind of, I know it sounds ridiculous, but sort of adulation from an audience is it's like a drug, and it's there was a definite sort of period of withdrawal from that, certainly. Yeah. And it's a lot more difficult for me to adapt that, or it took a little bit longer. My wife, for example, was a substance misuse worker, so she was able to continue to work less on a face-to-face basis, but her work continued Monday to Friday, so there was still that structure. I definitely missed the sort of what little structure I did have.
Actually, just building on that then, Paul, what you're talking about there is that sort of ability to adapt, that ability to kind of change. Even if it was hard, it was still, you had to try and think about how to change. And Eno, coming to you, like your story was very much one of, right, so this is my plan, this is the job spec I've signed up to, here are all my plans for the rest of the year, fantastic. And then suddenly it was, okay, how do I create something brand new? How did that feel? Like, was it totally scary to begin with? Was it immediately a welcome challenge for you, or?
Yeah, no, it wasn't a challenge really, because I'm a designer. I what's the word? Define myself as a designer. So as a designer, I have this inbuilt design thinking. You're always thinking, how can you improve things? If I'm on a train, I'm like, why have they got the seats like that? Why have they used that cloth? If I'm filling in a form, I'm like, why are they asking me this question? I'm always asking questions. I'm always trying to think about how I can improve things. That's naturally how I think. So the second you stick me in something and I'm like, okay, something has changed, my first instinct is not to worry about the problem, is to think about a solution. Like, how can I make myself feel better in where I currently am, which is temporary. Everything is temporary. Even if it's 2 years, 5 years, 2 minutes, it's still temporary. So we're always looking for solutions. When Paul was talking, I was thinking about when I first started talking to Sarah about doing this, I was saying, I'm very much an introvert. I love being an introvert. I have no problem with it. And I started owning more after Susan Cain's book. I'm an introvert, but I'm not shy. I love being by myself. So the difference between me and Paul is, give me a space to retreat into. Oh my God, yes, I am at home. So I have to work really hard to be not loving being in the retreat space too much, basically, because I get energy from being by myself. I like being outside, but I don't want to talk to you. I just want to be outside and look at you.
Me personally, or?
Yeah, right. I don't want to I have no contact, but, so I think introverts and extroverts are kind of suffering in the same way. But generally for me, what I've done is thought about solutions. And in my new job, as I said, I went into designing and developing and implementing events. I've never really held events before. I usually am a content person who works solo. The kind of events that we've created for other people who were finding lockdown difficult is things like, we talked about Pilates, we talked about, we held sessions for parents with primary school kids or secondary school kids who were struggling to homeschool. We've done stuff on the future of work. We did design sessions on how to create your working from home space. We did a conversation on race after the killing of George Floyd. We've done socials and quizzes. It has been great. It's been full of creativity. So I'm just focusing on the creativity.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think another sort of thing that's coming up in the chat as well, about this, about how kind of, this almost that kind of ability that you have really helps with resilience and being able to weather this kind of a time. So a real cornerstone in kind of, in how we can be, and kind of that trait that you have about curiosity, asking about the seats on the train and things, whilst everyone else is just trying to, do their shopping or whatever on the train. But I've also just want to go into some of the questions on the chat, because the other key theme that's coming out of this is around authenticity. Lauren, could I take it back to you? I've got a really, Tiffany Dawson commented, Tiffany, do you want to share a bit about people you're being asked to advise on LinkedIn pictures and what people should have nowadays? Tiffany, do you want to take yourself off mute and ask your question?
Hi, hopefully you can see and hear me.
Great.
Yeah, so I spoke to a group of university students, all females. That's what I do. I help women in STEM to step up in their careers. So I talked to them about some basic interview skills and gave them a whole presentation on things that they should look out for and things that they should do when they're networking. And I thought I was going to get lots of questions about, you know, what should I do when I'm asked this question in an interview and all this stuff. But their number one question that kept coming up was, what profile picture should I be using on my LinkedIn profile? And this was something that I haven't thought about for such a long time because I joined LinkedIn so long ago. But I think now the lines are quite blurred in terms of, you know, LinkedIn is a social platform. These people at university, they're very used to using social platforms, but this kind of has an air of professionality as well, if that's a word. So they're just really confused as to how to even approach LinkedIn in the first place.
Yeah, and I mean, that's why we wanted to broker this conversation, because we really felt like kind of the area between work life is having this happy collision or this kind of absolute car crash as well. You know, yes, it's happening with LinkedIn pictures, it's happening with meetings, and you know, my son's run in on a quiz I've been running and asked me, you know, why is my bottom so stinky, mummy? And I said, don't worry guys, that was not question 8 of the quiz. But yeah, this collide is happening, and I think for profile pictures, it's, you know, it's that who should I be? That idea of authenticity is really interesting. We've got another. Thank you for that point. Do you want, Lauren? Do you want to pick up on that?
Sure. Many people have reached out to me asking me a similar question, or even sending me something and saying, "What do you think?" And what my response is quite simple. It's just, you do you. I did me, you do you. Stick with something that feels genuine and authentic, and let people know who you really are. You know, so many of the comments, there was a lot of praise, but there were a lot of people who said things like, you know, this isn't Instagram, this isn't Facebook. You know, in other words, this isn't a place for selfies or showing who you really are. This is not a place to be vulnerable. And my response to that is, I just thought that was ridiculous. Things are blurred. We are the same people at work as we are at home. Why should we be putting on a bit of a show for LinkedIn? You know, what I would tell your STEM students is it's an opportunity for them to interview employers as well. And all of the conversation that's sparked, I think, is a great opportunity for companies to think about what they do to minimize biases in the hiring process. You know, maybe we shouldn't even be looking at photos as a start. And there, I think that people just need to do what feels right for them. You know, that authenticity will come out, and vulnerability in the workplace too is just another really important topic. And a lot of people ask me, like, what does it mean to be vulnerable in the workplace? What does that even mean? And for me, it means that when I meet with my manager for our weekly one-on-ones and she says, how are things going? I say things like, I'm confused, I'm struggling this week, I'm scared, I need help. And her being vulnerable is showing empathy and compassion, that I've been there too, Lauren, what can I do to help you through this? So when you're not vulnerable and you're not authentic, whether the workplace or at home, it's such a missed opportunity for connection. If you've noticed, seeing people at home, seeing your little child run through, talking about the things that you're struggling with, we've all been there. And that's really where the connection is happening. And I think that there's such an opportunity there. We probably all feel it through this pandemic. We know people so much more in a way, especially our colleagues, because we're seeing them in their natural environment. And I hope that when the doors open, we continue to act this way, and be ourselves and show this very personal side of ourselves, because there's so much power in that.
Great, that's great. Created some really big responses there. Susie said on the chat that she's updated some socials with a photo with a mask, so sort of a photo plus mask, so people recognize her with half her face covered. And that's great. And they also said that your manager sounds ace as well, by the way, Lauren. So that's great. Thank you for sharing that.
So I just wanted to build on some of the stories we've been hearing there, and ask Ben, just put him in the spotlight a little bit. Ben, we've heard your kind of your inspiring, soon to be in cinemas near you story in the introduction. And that is really, really moving. One of the other interesting parts, I think, of your story is actually on that work side of things, where you and your business have taken quite a pragmatic approach to helping people who are going through tough times and sort of redundancies in this time. Do you mind telling us a little bit about that?
Yeah, and it links as well. It links to that. Who am I? Because what the business that I run is one that takes people, and those are people with enthusiasm and aptitude to work in technology. But they are from all sorts of different backgrounds, all sorts of different ages and degree subjects or no degree. And the idea is to open up technology skills to those people. And it's been amazing because over the course of the last sort of 9 months, there are waves of people coming towards us from hospitality, from retail. It's no surprise, is it? 130,000 people made redundant in retail this year, another 130,000, if not more, next year. So in terms of that person, you think about that person, let's say 26, worked in retail, they started on the shop floor and now they're working in head office, but they've been made redundant. The whole business and the world that they're working in is moving towards being a technology driven one, online shopping, apps and so on. Why would that person is turning around and going, who am I now? I know about retail, I know about customers, or I've worked in hospitality, but now there's different ways that this whole industry space is functioning. And I'm going to go through this program with this company or one of our competitors or a similar, teach yourself sort of thing. And I'm going to give myself the digital skills to sort of pivot my career. And there's been some amazing stories. People who, not just from retail and hospitality, but and not just people who've been made redundant, but people that just want to work with software because there is a growing demand for that, and a serious lack of skills compared to that demand, and a massive lack of diversity in technology as well, because it's always been a skills driven industry where if you've got the skills, fine, doesn't matter who you are. So we don't, the technology industry hasn't cared about diversity in the past, and now it's having to start to, because it's getting bigger and bigger. But doing it for businesses has been really interesting as well, because we've had businesses come to us and say, we're going to have to look at laying off these people, okay? And these people all work in our customer services department or in a non-tech department. But at the same time, all we're going to be doing over the next 3 years is increasing our technology workforce. So have these people, these great employees who know all about the business, who are more diverse than the set of employees we have in our technology departments by default, have these people got the latent skills and the ability to transfer into technology departments, and people who run big businesses and people in HR and people in sort of change positions at these very large companies have previously thought, well, no, they haven't. And now they're starting to wake up and say, well, have they? And the answer is yes. And it's been amazing to let these people pivot within the companies, and on the public courses to let these people almost take a step back, learn again, and relaunch in a fairly quick and smooth fashion. And what comes out of that is an immense amount of gratitude. And this, there's all this talk about, especially with sort of millennials or younger people, having this degree of entitlement, and you can agree with that or disagree with that, and that's another conversation. But the people who come through after we've given them those digital skills and are in a new job and a new career pathway, they've got this gratitude because they know they're now in an aspect of industry which is booming, and it's really, really interesting. But the company tries to take the fear out of working in technology, because there's all this technological jargon, and people don't understand what that means. And especially for the female psyche, seeing all these tech words, it doesn't sit well. And they think, well, I can't do that. And actually, you're trying to say to these people, you can, because you're creative. And actually, there's a big need, for example, for creativity within technology. So it's been really interesting.
Really interesting. So you've been sort of busy saving jobs, or at least brokering that conversation with employers about considering lateral skill set. That's really interesting. And as you might say, like really fascinating for inclusion purposes as well. There's some chat as well around that. Ruth Miller's mentioned. Ruth, you mentioned that you actually train in avoiding bias. So kind of really interested to hear Lauren mentioning that around the kind of the idea of photo bias and things. So that's fascinating. I thought we should also take a quick peek in on Rebecca Osborne's work. Rebecca, what sort of things are jumping out at you from what we're chatting about? Can we?
Sorry, I was muted then. I just really very excited to hear talking about being brave and how it's sort of been maybe like a natural progression, a reaction to the negative to achieve something positive. And that is something I think that we've all seen in the media, is people doing really positive things. And personally, I think lockdown 2, I want it to be better than lockdown 1. So it's like the sequel that should be better. And I'm already sort of planning what will I do in lockdown 3. So yeah, cool.
Great, thank you. I love your pictures of everyone as well. They're great. They really look brilliant. That is amazing. Cool. And how's our word cloud doing as well then? What was our life more extraordinary for everybody that's on this call? How did that look? Tasha, can you share that?
Let me do that now.
Let's have a see. Let's have a see, as my 3-year-old says. Let's have a see.
Can everyone see?
Yeah. Oh, great. So some really, yeah.
I think the best word out of the lot is nappies. That's hilarious.
Well done.
Lovely that family fun together obviously came out for a lot of people, and that's why they're bigger. That's great.
I like that crappie's quite big as well.
Yeah, and well positioned for the eye line.
Yeah.
Well,
Family laughter crappie bubble.
Yeah, and Jin gives me a lot of resonance as well there, because I'm kind of, oh good, it wasn't just me then. That's good. Yeah. Brilliant.
Should we? There's been a lot of sort of inspiring stories so far. One of the things we wanted to try and do as well is spend a little bit of time thinking about things from a sort of practical, purposeful point of view. So we've got a little poll that Tash is going to help us out with. So this is a poll that everyone can dive into. You can answer as many times as you like. So it's a multiple choice. It's not rigged like the US elections. But if we can have a little look through there, and what we're trying to understand here is, like, from these amazing stories, from these inspiring people, what are the next things that actually people are going to find useful as they try and make, you try and make your own lives more extraordinary. So please vote now. That's like a game show. It's fantastic.
Place your votes now.
Place your votes now.
Great.
Norway, nil point.
Poor Norway. Have you seen Eurovision? That movie?
Yeah, that's it. The instant. I haven't watched that yet. Is that good lockdown watch?
Well, yeah, and I loved it. I could not get enough of it, and now I listen to the soundtrack on Alexa. But it is the total cheese. It's so good. Brain Haribo, as I call it.
I'll take that recommendation.
Do it tonight.
Brilliant. How's your voting going, guys? I feel like we need the countdown. Now.
We've gone deep dive into the Hamilton musical in our household. So our 6-year-old is now singing tunes from Hamilton. She doesn't understand what on earth is going on, but she loves the tunes.
Yeah, I love a bit of Hamilton.
Yeah.
Right, I think most of you have voted now. So should we end and share that poll and see what people find useful in taking these stories and moving them forward into purposeful action, maybe? Did I just use jargon there? I'm trying to not. Oh, brilliant. Okay.
Cool. And so here's a question
The winner is Deeper Dive Interviews.
Deeper Dive Interviews. So actually, and here's a question, and if someone would like to come off mute, someone who voted for that, would like to come off mute and just sort of explain, what is it about that you'd like to hear more in those? Is it just more of the story from the individual? Is there particular sort of things that you'd love to be able to hear from them? Who's going to be brave?
Well,
go for it.
This is Susie. Hi, I voted for it because I think people can be a bit shy about their stories, and so to give them a more extended space for them to share it and be a bit more vulnerable with it, so people can relate more. There's going to be more content that comes out of that, I think.
Brilliant, awesome, yeah.
I was going to say that I think a lot of people are thinking about doing some of the things that some of you talked about, of being more open on on some of the social media channels, or on doing something different with their business, or going it alone, but they're not sure how to do it, or what goes well, what's hard about it, and they need some honest content, because I do think a lot of what's out there can be really one way or another. It's either people going, I'm so brilliant, I set up a business on my own, but you don't really know much about, well, how do they do that, and what were the hard bits, and so on, or people going, I've been absolutely fine throughout this whole thing, and pretending everything's great, or pretending the world's ending. It's very few people are saying the good stuff and the bad stuff. So probably a bit of a long answer, but there you go.
No, but it's true, I think, because it cuts through the deeper dive. It cuts through. There's a lot of sensationalism out there, and I remember talking to Sarah before this webinar, and I said, for the first time, I'm starting to become sort of disillusioned more and more, with the news and the hysteria, and it's the same, on a platform like LinkedIn, which we've talked about, where people do seem to be one way or the other, and the deeper dive, cuts into what's really going on inside people's homes, and how are they really, and that's real news, isn't it, really, rather than the top level stuff that you're not really sure about whether to sort of take in or take on or whatever.
I was just building on what Ben was saying. It's Jeremy here speaking, by the way. For me, kind of the news is always delivered as facts, which are not particularly inspiring or interesting. When you start to wrap emotions around facts, you have a story. The king is dead, the queen is dead, two facts. The king died by the sword and the queen died of a broken heart. There you have a story, a love story in just a handful of words. So, and I voted for more stories because I think it's the chief way in which human beings connect with one another. It's the way we make sense of the world around us. It's the way we make sense of our experiences. It's how we plan for the future. And it's something that we all do as children, but is drummed out of us by the time we get to, certainly by the time we get to my old age. So, yeah, I'm a huge advocate for bringing people together, connecting, being part of an audience, listening to someone else. Something very, very magical happened. And all of you folks on the call who are kind of in the performing arts, you all know that instinctively, but it's something that's forgotten, I think, for a lot of folks in business.
Yeah, that's great. That's why we wanted to make sure different professions are clashing this conversation as well. So yeah, really interesting to hear. In the chat as well, Lindsay's made a comment. Lindsay, I don't know if you want to join in, say it in real life, but maybe a live, Lindsay?
Yeah, no, it just occurred to me while you guys were talking. I think that's the crux of it, isn't it? That our connection with each other is something away from this sensationalism and about common problems, the day-to-day. That's our human experience, our shared human experience, and whether we present that on a stage or whatever, it's or on a platform like this, these are the things that are bringing us together, we're finding. And so yeah, it's the ordinary that connects us. It's our shared struggles.
So yeah, making life more extraordinary means taking an interest in our ordinary. And Lindsay, you're joining us, I think, from Austria today, aren't you?
Yes.
And you are in the performing arts.
I'm in the performing arts, and I'm in a lucky position because the arts have been much more supported than in the UK. We, even after the first lockdown, went back to performing. It was, I'm pregnant, so I ducked out because, of course, on stage you're not wearing masks and the rest of it. And of course, there were people that fell through the net. Anyone who was self-employed kind of fell through the net, but there was a need to keep the arts going at all costs. The question is then how you, first of all, make the arts more accessible, which online platforms can do, I find. I'm finding more and more opportunities, play readings online, where you can join a play reading in London or in Paris, or improv festivals where I can play a scene with someone from Spain. Amazing things that are happening out of all of this. And the second thing I think in the arts it's important to keep in mind is what stories we want to share. Whether we go back to what we were planning for the season, or we look at the stories that the world needs right now, if you understand what I mean. So we're in lockdown again. There are no performances going on at the moment, but it gives people the time to reflect in the culture sector, I think, about what we want to put on stage, what we want to put out there. Yeah, what stories will connect.
Stories that connect, that's great, thank you. And hopefully, well, we've all heard a lot of them this morning, so that's great. Something we have been doing with a few of our panelists is kind of like asking kind of 11 questions that kind of might spark lockdown, and for you, and sort of like what your experience has been like. So these are the 11 questions of living La Vida lockdown. Here's a little taste of some of the panelists we've already asked.
I am very ready. I have had almost all year to prepare for this. Because I had never watched The Sopranos before, which was, I mean, what a gift to myself it was to have the whole of that to watch in early lockdowns.
It's morning time, and morning time was always something that I enjoyed, but now I find that I can make the most of that morning time.
I'm going to stop apologizing for how I look, for not being camera ready, for not having makeup on, and just be myself. I'm scared, I'm confused, I'm tired, but I'm hopeful.
No, like everyone else, it depends on which day you catch me on. There has been days where I'm like, oh, I've had enough of this. And then there's other days, I'll be honest, there has been elements of it that I've really enjoyed. So
I think 2021 will continue to be a little bit scary, but full of surprises and tremendous growth.
Both, with an exclamation mark.
A weird one, because I've had a bit of both, actually.
Physically fatter, mentally fitter.
What gets me through it is gratitude, and I feel very, very lucky to be in the working world that I'm in, and I feel very lucky to be as privileged as I am.
Gin.
There you go. So yeah, that will be on social. Do follow our social. We were going to kind of shift a bit to some kind of like chat around some of those 11 questions, if that's cool, and send you out to breakout rooms. So, Lauren, how was your room?
My room was fantastic. We did manage to get to one question, but mostly we were talking about women in the workforce, how women are leaving to become caregivers, what we need to do to support them. We talked about a lot of the issues that already existed in this world, like mental health, you know, all these sorts of things that existed before, but now there's just a wonderful light shed on them and more attention being paid to some of these issues. So a lot of our conversation was about that, but then we heard some great stories about people getting fitter during the pandemic, which is awesome.
Oh, that's cool.
It was a great conversation. Thank you.
No, I'm really glad you had a great conversation. And don't worry, the 11 questions weren't kind of, you didn't have to go for that. I must confess, in our group as well, we did bounce a couple of the questions around at the end, but we were mostly talking about the thinking today, because we have such a kind of global presence, was about how much social distancing, some of the things we're really kind of taking for granted, are actually a real privilege in other parts of the world. And there's a real cultural misunderstanding as well around social distancing.
Yeah, I mean, we complain about our, you know, unmute our tech button, you know, broadband now is now considered like a basic human right? So some of these things that we take for granted, absolutely.
Yeah, the kind of Maslow structure with the Wi-Fi at the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So Kat, Ollie, do you want to feedback on your room?
We talked about not the 11 questions at first, and we were just having a general chat about who accosts their postal worker and how often, and whether or not they have pride about you running out to greet them like a Labrador puppy, so you see humans, and the fact that what happened with the clapping. And Lindsay was saying about, you know, in Austria, it feels like the community spirit has kind of died down a little bit, whereas the perception is that in the UK, it's still going strong. But actually, then, you know, Sarah was saying it doesn't really feel like anything's changed in the new lockdown because our kids are still going to school. So it's just like a continuation of before.
Are you guys still clapping for the NHS workers? Is that happening anymore?
We had like an official.
We gotta bring that back.
Oh, we were talking about that. We were saying like there was an official date when that ended, and my husband said to me, "We're not clapping anymore." And I was like, "What? What do you mean? Like, are we taking a stand against the NHS? Why are you being like this?" He's like, "No, the clapping is over." And I'm like, "Oh."
We have like COVID fatigue is a real thing. And the same thing happens after natural disasters. I read somewhere that the community comes together, we help each other, and then everything kind of goes back to normal. But the truth is, like, we still should be doing these things. That's why I'm still glad, you know, 9 months into this pandemic, we're still having these conversations and saying, how are you really doing? Because you know what, it's still really important to do these things and to clap for our workers, you know, even though we're all just have become a little bit immune to how sucky this is, it's still really important to do these things.
I think one of the things, sort of riffing off that and connecting to what we were talking about in our room, is that this might just be a personal thing, but not only have we kind of maybe lost that initial community spirit that was there in the first lockdown, particularly in the UK, that's my experience of it, but we've then also gone to a bit of a them and us situation on some of the topics, you know, whether it's social distancing, whether it's going to work or not, whether it's wearing a mask or not. And it feels again that there's still a little bit too much division, not just a sort of a loss of that community feel, but actually then almost down into the division about them and us on too many topics. And one of the things that we spoke about in our group and Susie brought up, which was really interesting, was the idea that actually these lockdowns have kind of almost been a magnifying glass. So almost whatever you were before, you're just more of now, and it's probably more intense and more real. And that, yes, there are those who have been inspired, but maybe they were actually, you know, more open to inspiration in the beginning. You know, there are those who have got fitter, but again, maybe they were more open to that in the beginning. And actually it's been more of a magnifying glass. And then Jeremy was talking as well about the importance of curiosity, importance of bravery and storytelling. But one thing he added in, which I thought was really interesting again, was that idea of empathy. That again, you might be feeling really inspired, and this might be a time you're looking back at going, I am going to use this to change the direction. I'm going to use this to motivate me to achieve great things. And that's fantastic. However, your partner, friend, colleague might be going, I'm really kind of struggling, and I'm just going to wait until this kind of sorts itself out, and then I'll do my thing. And so actually in those times, that empathy is really, really important.
Yeah. and to really ride the roller coaster as well. I mean, I'm using the corona coaster terminology and things, but I think that's sort of really coming through. And I think, with all our panelists as well today, it's very much not just that story of like, oh my gosh, isn't it amazing? I'm such an overachiever, which they all were, and have all done this, but actually the kind of realness of, it's really tough sometimes, and it has been such a weird experience to live in. And that kind of acknowledging that actually, even if so many more of us, tens of thousands of us in our company are working remotely, it's not your ideal way to be working flexibly. It is kind of working in a pandemic, and that sort of thing coming through as well in the chat. So yeah, some really interesting reflections. I know people are going to start to have to leave now, and we are going to wrap up the next 3 minutes. So do follow us on social media. We will share more on these conversations. So that would be really brilliant. It's great that people have made connections. We're looking to do some future sessions as well, and hopefully record maybe some podcasts and things, but some future sessions. We would love your feedback on those as well around subject areas. So we will share those with you guys as well. That signed up for the Eventbrite and were on today's call. So brilliant. Should we just quickly go back to Rebecca Osborne and that amazing piece of artwork, which has been visualizing some of the beautiful chat that's been going on this morning. Rebecca, want to share?
Yeah, so I have, let me just put this on, see if I talk, it should come up as speaker, but maybe it's not sure. Can you see it?
Yeah, no, it's great, it's looking good.
I have popped the JPEG in the chat for you. Kat, I've emailed you. I actually sent two through on Twitter. I did tidy the second one up a bit. There was a couple of blobs that I've tidied up. So.
Amazing. So we're already going around social.
Brilliant.
Looks fantastic.
Brilliant.
That looks amazing.
That's amazing.
I can't believe, Brian, I'm going to call you Brian. You're called Eno, and you talked about the Matrix, and I had to say Eno or Neo.
Oh my gosh, it's so good.
That's so good.
About that. Right, okay. I'm going to steal that.
That's yours. You're welcome.
Brilliant.
Really great. Right, we're heading towards the 12:30 now. So
yeah, so let's wrap up. Can we say a big thank you, obviously, to our panelists for spending your time. Thank you so much for sharing your stories.
Everyone, come off mute. Let's clap.
Yay!
And thank you to everyone who's turned up as well and joined in so passionately with the discussion. And a huge thank you to Tasha behind the scenes, who has been doing an incredible amount of work, not just this morning, but over the last few weeks to help bring this together. So Natasha, thank you so much for everything as well. And a big thank you to Rebecca. Absolute delight to have you involved in that beautiful piece created.
Amazing.
We will share the webinar, so you can share it across social media as well. We'll share the recording over the next week, so you can share that for more people to watch back as well. And we might even brave it and have even more people on the call at our next one. So please do join, invite friends, and we'll kind of like carry on the conversation, and we will make it a life more extraordinary. Woo!